A plane, a perfect takeoff, 60 seconds of silence, then a fireball over a crowded Indian medical campus. That's all it took for Air India Flight 171 to vanish from the sky, and from our understanding of how a Boeing 787 is supposed to work. It was a Dreamliner. It was inspected. It was cleared. And still, it never made it beyond 625 feet. But what if the real cause of the crash wasn't just hidden in the wreckage, but hidden in the sound? Because just before that fatal descent, a strange mechanical hum was caught on tape, a sound that should never appear during a standard takeoff. Not from a twin-engine jet. Not unless something had already gone horribly wrong. What was it? Why was it there? And how did a commercial pilot, not a crash investigator, not Boeing, not the media, finally decode it and expose a mystery that now has global aviation authorities on edge? This is not just about one crash. It's about a pattern. And what you're about to hear might change the way you feel the next time you board a plane. Let's dive into it. Air India Flight 171 took off from Ahmedabad with nothing out of the ordinary. From security footage, we see the Dreamliner accelerating smoothly, nose lifting perfectly. No smoke, no unusual tilt, no warning signs. For the first 15 seconds, everything looks ideal. But then, without warning, the plane stops climbing. It simply plateaus at around 625 feet, an altitude so low it would still be visible from nearby rooftops. And then it begins to fall. What makes this so unsettling is that the aircraft does not show signs of mechanical failure in the way we've come to expect. There's no fire trail, no sudden loss of structural integrity, no erratic movements. It descends as if deliberately, calmly, but it never recovers. By the time it crashes into the side of BJ Medical College, the aircraft is already engulfed. A massive explosion, hundreds rushing to the site, and amidst the debris, one single survivor, a man in seat 11A, whose miraculous escape raised more questions than answers. Within hours, news outlets rushed to broadcast crash footage. But what most people saw was not the original video. It was a screen recording, blurry, grainy, shot over someone's shoulder. Still, it went viral, until a clearer version emerged, one with cleaner visuals and audio. And that's when the mystery began. A subtle whine, rising in pitch, cutting through the roar of the engines, a noise too mechanical, too specific. Not from the engines, not from the airframe. Experienced pilots and engineers recognized it instantly. It wasn't a normal sound. It was a ram air turbine, or RAT, a device that only deploys during total engine failure or catastrophic system loss. And yet, Flight 171 had barely taken off. Why was a RAT deployed just seconds into the flight? What triggered this emergency system so early, and what does it reveal about what was happening in that cockpit? While analysts were still combing through telemetry and crash reports, a seasoned commercial airline pilot took to YouTube, not to speculate, but to demonstrate. He cross-referenced sound signatures. He compared RAT deployments from real emergency landings, from Japan Airlines, from Boeing test videos, and matched them, frequency for frequency, to the sound in the Air India 171 footage. It was identical. The pilot concluded something chilling. The RAT had deployed not during descent, but during the climb, possibly within seconds of liftoff. That could only mean one thing. A total power failure, electrical or hydraulic, had struck the aircraft during takeoff. But the implications are even worse. Because if this happened before the aircraft ever left the runway completely, the pilots would have had seconds to respond. And the RAT? It wasn't just a symptom. It was the only thing keeping the plane systems alive. The idea that a 787 suffered such a failure in such a narrow time window rewrites how we think about takeoff safety. Here's where it gets truly disturbing. This is not the first time a Boeing aircraft has had mysterious failures during or just after takeoff. But it is the first time that the ram air turbine appears to have deployed without any official confirmation from the manufacturer or aviation authorities. Boeing stock plummeted after the incident, nearly $10 in a day. Why? Because every time a crash even hints at being system-related, it echoes previous tragedies. The MAX disasters, the autopilot overrides, the software anomalies swept under layers of legalese and PR statements. And yet, Boeing insists the 787 is one of the safest aircraft ever built. The survivor's testimony only deepens the mystery. He claims to have jumped from the plane, an almost impossible feat unless the fuselage split open early, offering a narrow window for escape. Seat 11A isn't near the rear, it's near the wing, near the fuel tanks. The implication is terrifying. The plane may have already been failing structurally before impact. And still, no one has officially acknowledged the RAT. That sound, that turbine, might be the single biggest clue. And one pilot alone managed to solve what an entire investigation was still ignoring. When a ram air turbine activates, it's not subtle, not inside the cockpit. The sudden drop in cabin systems, the switch to manual reversion, the transformation of the aircraft's behavior from stable to unresponsive, all of it happens in a blink. The pilots of Flight 171, assuming they were even aware of the RAT deployment, would have faced one of the most terrifying scenarios imaginable. A complete electrical dropout with no time, no altitude, and no checklist capable of fixing what had just occurred. Unlike a fire or a visible malfunction, this was a silent failure. No automated voice warnings, no flashing displays, just the plane quietly handing over control, but only partially. And in those crucial first 30 seconds after takeoff, where every second matters, this sudden electronic blackout left the crew flying blind, with nearly 200 tons of fuel and metal drifting toward a densely populated city. The cockpit would have gone from digital confidence to analog chaos, and no simulator on Earth trains for that at 625 feet above ground. Modern jets like the 787 are so heavily automated that pilots often rely on electronic systems to execute tasks once done manually: thrust balancing, trim adjustment, even flight surface alignment during takeoff. But when the RAT engages, those systems vanish. What's left is bare minimum hydraulics, essential for keeping the aircraft controllable, but with none of the intelligent corrections the system normally applies behind the scenes. One former Boeing engineer noted that a RAT-powered 787 behaves more like a mechanical ghost of itself, still flying, but no longer fully alive. And if the flaps or slats were retracted, manually or by mistake, during this chaotic switch to RAT power, there would be no way for the aircraft to recover lift. This raises a chilling possibility. Not only did the RAT deploy, but it might have done so before the aircraft could complete its climb configuration, locking it into a low-lift, high-drag state with no escape. It's like trying to drive up a hill in neutral. No matter how hard you press, nothing happens. In the days following the crash, whispers began circulating among air traffic control staff in Ahmedabad. One controller reportedly claimed the aircraft's transponder had gone intermittent before radar contact was lost. Another said the last communication from the cockpit wasn't a mayday or an alert, but a strange, clipped message, possibly cut off mid-sentence. And then there's the black box, or more precisely, what wasn't said about it. Early press statements mentioned that the CVR, cockpit voice recorder, was recovered, but as weeks passed, no transcript was ever released. For aviation experts, this is highly unusual. The voice recorder almost always provides clues, even in high-impact crashes. Its silence in this case is louder than any sound. What if the electrical failure disrupted the CVR's function? What if the RAT wasn't just powering flight controls, but the only system keeping the aircraft's memory alive? A brief power surge could have corrupted everything, leaving investigators with a machine that screamed through the sky but left no final words behind. The implications of what this pilot uncovered go far beyond Flight 171. If a Dreamliner, Boeing's most modern wide-body aircraft, can suffer an uncommanded RAT deployment during takeoff, it means there's a hole in the aircraft's design logic. Not a hole caused by a missing wire or a broken bolt, but by assumptions made in the software, in the automation, in the very philosophy of modern cockpit design. For years, aircraft manufacturers have promoted the idea that their planes are too smart to fail, that automation will always prevent catastrophe. But what Flight 171 may prove is that there's a silent boundary where human reflex and machine obedience clash, and the machine doesn't win. Airlines worldwide are watching. Some have already begun internal safety reviews. Others remain silent, unwilling to confront the possibility that their fleet might be vulnerable to the same untraceable glitch. And Boeing? Still no statement about the RAT, no mention in the public report, no press release, no update, as if ignoring the sound will make it go away. In aviation, there are crashes that shake us, disasters that rattle public trust, moments that ignite media firestorms and international inquiries. But then there are crashes like Air India Flight 171, silent, clean, efficient in their destruction, leaving behind only questions and a haunting sense that something deeper went wrong. It wasn't the fireball. It wasn't the descent. It wasn't even the loss of 211 lives. It was the one sound no one was supposed to hear, the whine of the ram air turbine, the mechanical whisper that should only appear when all else has failed. A sound that tells us the aircraft, for all its technology, had surrendered, that its digital brain had shut down, that its automated soul had gone dark. And it wasn't Boeing who pointed this out. It wasn't the FAA. It wasn't a safety board or a committee. It was a pilot, just one, sitting at home, headphones on, slowing down a video frame by frame, listening for the truth. And what he uncovered wasn't just a failure of engineering. It was a failure of acknowledgement. A refusal by an industry to face the fact that even the most advanced machines can fail silently, and that sometimes the truth leaks out only when someone dares to listen. So now we're left with this. If a commercial jet can lose its systems in silence, if its final warning is heard by civilians before investigators, if its black box speaks less than a YouTube upload, what else have we missed? What do you think caused the downfall of Flight 171? Was it a power system glitch, a design flaw, or a systemic cover-up waiting to surface? Drop your theory in the comments, and don't hold back. Smash that like button if you believe every passenger deserves truth, not silence. Hit subscribe, because we're digging into the stories they've tried to forget. And this is just the beginning. Because sometimes, the only thing louder than an explosion is a secret nobody wants you to hear.